In a significant escalation of international rhetoric, United States President Donald Trump has issued a direct public threat regarding the potential destruction of an entire civilization. The statement, a 7-word post published to social media in the early morning hours, read, "A whole civilization will die tonight, never to be brought back again." Unlike traditional diplomatic warnings or classified national security briefings, the message was delivered raw and unfiltered to tens of millions of people globally. Analysts note a critical distinction in the president's language, shifting from standard military deterrence, which typically outlines consequences for specific actions, to an explicit declaration of imminent destruction. The timing and nature of the post, described by observers as the use of shock as a strategic weapon, prompted immediate high-level responses from international allies, most notably from the Canadian government. In Ottawa, the administration of Prime Minister Mark Carney was forced into an immediate emergency posture as senior officials were pulled from morning briefings to address the potential global fallout. The incident marks a departure from established diplomatic norms, signaling a move toward public, high-stakes brinkmanship that bypasses traditional back channels of communication between the United States and its closest partners. Following the president's social media post, Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney delivered a direct response during a scheduled appearance in Brampton, Ontario. Carney, a former governor of the Bank of England and the Bank of Canada, with extensive experience in global financial crises, utilized the platform to issue a precise, multi-layered message to both Washington and the international community. Central to his statement was the assertion that Canada expects all parties in this conflict to respect international laws, a phrasing described by analysts as a firm demand rather than a diplomatic suggestion. Carney further claimed that a significant gap exists between the United States president's public rhetoric and the reality of private negotiations. He explicitly stated that the public threats do not reflect the actual discussions occurring behind closed doors, effectively attempting to undermine the credibility of the president's online statements. Carney also confirmed that while Canada is not at the center of the current negotiations involving the United States and Iran, the Canadian government maintains visibility into the process. This disclosure indicates that Ottawa has access to non-public information regarding the standoff. Political observers note that Carney's remarks served a dual purpose, acting as a surgical diplomatic pushback against Washington, while simultaneously addressing a domestic Canadian audience. The response comes at a time when Canada is facing increased economic and diplomatic pressure from the United States, including threats of tariffs and the renegotiation of long-standing trade frameworks. By publicly challenging the president's rhetoric, Carney signaled that the Canadian government intends to resist external pressure and maintain its sovereign position on the world stage. The diplomatic friction coincides with a major domestic policy shift, as Canada announces a $51 billion community infrastructure investment. This funding is directed toward hospitals, transit systems, and community centers, representing a strategic move to stimulate jobs independent of United States trade influence. The timing of this announcement, occurring the same day as the response to President Trump, is being characterized by government sources as an intentional effort to demonstrate national economic sovereignty. The broader economic context is defined by a $2 trillion annual trade relationship between Canada and the United States, a system now facing significant uncertainty due to escalating tensions. Geopolitical instability in the Middle East, fueled by presidential rhetoric, has the potential to impact global energy markets, as the region contains approximately 30% of the world's proven oil reserves. Historically, such tensions have led to energy price increases in Canada of up to 20% in a single quarter, directly affecting consumer costs for heating, transportation, and groceries. Moving forward, analysts identify 3 primary trajectories for the Canada-US relationship: continued escalation that could destabilize global markets and force NATO allies to take sides, a quiet resolution where private negotiations eventually align with public outcomes, or an accelerated diversification of Canada's trade and diplomatic alliances to reduce dependency on Washington. As these events unfold, the focus remains on the structural resilience of the Canadian economy and the long-term impact of the newly announced infrastructure projects. For ongoing coverage of this developing situation and its impact on global trade and domestic policy, subscribe to our updates and enable notifications.